Hey friend, you know how sometimes I'll put out a video with a thumbnail or title but kinda sounds like it could be about drama or a hot take. And then you watch it and it turns out that you were baited into getting roasted or listening to a motivational speech? Well, despite the fact that I'm a skilled and practiced deceiver, this ain't one of them videos. When I say that invasion content is cringe, I'm being completely sincere. In fact, I'll go a step further and say that invasion content on the internet is exactly as cringy and weird as comic books and fan fiction and furries and tabletop RPGs are. And you know what? That's fucking awesome. Invading is a tiny, niche hobby that appeals to a small fraction of the player base. And an even smaller fraction bothers to clip a moment of gameplay, and a vanishingly small fraction of that fraction takes time to edit those clips into a narrative framework. By definition, this pursuit is unappealing and unfathomable to the mainstream audience of ELDEN, which itself is found guilty of cringe by the general public of people whose exposure to gaming consists of mobile gaming. A general public that is, in turn, seen as cringe and out of touch by certain hardcore gamer types. So it is that we find ourselves in the grand circle of cringe. Like all things deep, it is a cycle unto eternity. Being cringe is liberating. Once you've accepted that the things you love are off-putting and incomprehensible to some people, when you realize that you will never be cool in the eyes of every observer, you're free to be the person you want to be. Cringe, cringe, cringe. None of you are free from being an embarrassment. And that bold foolishness, that confident disregard for the judgment of people you don't respect, that is strength. I've had a lot of hobbies in my life, including drawing and writing and singing, and when first I set out to learn these things, I made only terrible drawings, songs, and stories. For entire months when I started editing my clips, it was messy and glacially slow. My first invasion was clumsy and bumbling. It was all cringe. I've made literally thousands of fuck-ups in my many years on this planet. Some of them minor, some of them life-altering. I'd wager that you have as well. And with every fuck-up, every bad decision, failed plan, or miscalculation, we grow. The old saying goes that iron sharpens iron. And while the point of that saying is that an equal rival makes both opponents better, the unintended metaphor is that we become sharper by being ground down. Well, if you're anything like me, you've been ground down razor sharp. So what is cringe? Cringe is a judgment of worthiness. Saying something is cringe is to say that the topic is unworthy of excitement, enthusiasm, and appreciation. That's a subjective valuation. That quality of cringe exists only in the eye of the beholder. You can only decide, and only you can decide, if that's true for you. Now that's not to say you can't be persuaded that your interests are unworthy of joy, or that some of those arguments aren't compelling. But ultimately, it's up to you to decide what is good in life. And I assure you that anybody spending their limited lives to smother your joy is entirely unworthy of your attention. And if you're an artist of any kind, whether you're writing your first poem or your 30th shitty Invader music video, you can't afford to fear making anything unworthy, anything bad, anything cringe. Because if you fear failure, if you fear making bad art, you can never succeed in making good art, or okayish art, or even simply the bad art you feared to make. You'll be stuck crumpling your drafts into garbage because nothing, I mean nothing, that you make will ever live up to the ideal that lives in your head. It's fine to have that perfect thing in your head. Without it, you'd have nothing to shoot for, but you must recognize that you can never attain that perfection without failing, without a torrent of errors, without being cringe. So let's talk about it. Who are these creators and what makes them cringe? Being a bad red has never been more despised, thanks to the generally more casual experience offered by Elden Ring than FromSoft used to serve up. Cooperative players accuse us of many things, but by far the most common accusation, applicable to every level bracket, is that we're bullies who have more PvP experience and more optimized builds for hunting our fellow Tarnished. To this I respond, yeah, and? In the story of Elden Ring, if you're following the guidance of grace, both the Bloody Fingers of Mogwyn and the Recusants of Volcano Manor are tasked with killing other Tarnished. The two factions are blasphemous murderers and rebellious upstarts. The framing of the story puts us in the role of bad guys. We came here to murder other Tarnished. It only makes sense that our stats and skills are designed to kill the protagonist, and that we have more experience in PvP. All of this is clearly intentional. You need only examine the structure of the game. For instance, there are no rewards for invading outside of a rune arc or finger remedy, and a small portion of runes. This fact, along with the design of invasions being mostly a 3-against-1 affair, tells me that invasions are intended as an activity for only the most invested hobbyists. There's a saying in combat sports that you fight the way you train, and it just so happens that the training of Elden Ring invaders is also the fight. It is quickly impressed upon us that we should expect one-sided stomps unless we prepare and practice a fairly impressive amount. That's a consequence of the player limit and password summon system, features which quickly filter out the less resilient or determined invaders. This skill difference and advanced preparation result in new players feeling bullied because, well, they're being bullied. But that's the job. As fellow hobbyist invader and YouTuber Big Charles says, invasions are supposed to be mean. The other common accusation is that invasion content creators are toxic. The rebuttals to this could go on for a few minutes, but I'd rather shut it all down immediately by asking, who decides what qualifies as toxic? If toxicity, like cringe, is defined by the speaker instead of some agreed-upon standard, then the word toxic just means that you don't like that thing. If that's the standard for toxicity, then fuck it. Embrace toxicity. Play the bad guy in this digital drama the way a heel plays their part in pro wrestling. This is not real life. This is an action role-playing game. Nobody actually died. The worst thing that happens is a host has to go back to the grace 10 feet away from the boss fog. Some well-known creators often complain about the game, and this complaining is said to be toxic. However, I have to ask the question, is it toxic? Or is it passionate? If you're watching this deep into the video, you're at least a little familiar with video games. Can you remember the last time you just hated a game? A real piece of shit that you stopped playing before the tutorial was over? You picturing it? Good. Now, how much did you complain about it? I'd bet you didn't even say anything or post about it anywhere. I know that when I play a game that doesn't appeal to me, I uninstall it and forget its existence within a day. For instance, the very first game I bought for PlayStation was And I had to look this up. Omega Quintet. I generally like weeb shit games, but this one immediately turned me away with derivative gameplay and story. I haven't even thought about this game since I deleted it from my PS4 until I needed an example for this video. It just wasn't for me. So I shrugged and moved on. $7 spent on learning the lesson that PlayStation doesn't have the same sort of refund system that Steam does. No, the people who play this game endlessly while complaining about it endlessly are doing so because they care deeply about this game, and probably the genre as a whole. Listen, here's an insight into my process. I just start saying some shit off the cuff like I'm sitting by the campfire with a good friend. I don't really structure or heavily revise. I want to give you my real thoughts and experiences. The script I write prior to recording is sort of just compiling all my thoughts so they're easy to remember. Because of this, I sometimes find a certain tension between two equally strongly held opinions. Like all other people now living, I too am growing as a person. So let me slightly walk back a statement I made a while ago. Among other things, I stated a few videos ago that I found mental weakness in invaders to be disappointing. I still stand by that, but I hadn't considered the point of view of old-head invaders. There's a contingent of invaders such as Emotional John who intentionally undergear themselves in order to fairly invade low room level areas like Limgrave and Weeping Peninsula, so as to make everybody feel like they had a chance at winning if they had just tried harder. Well, that's a great goal, and I hadn't really considered that. What I view as unnecessarily limiting, he views as curation of experience, and I think that's a valuable perspective. Anyhow, there's another accusation that I think is pretty commonly leveled against creators, that we cherry-pick clips to make ourselves look better than we are. It's generally true that most of us are posting the wins and leaving out the losses, but I don't believe this is being done as a method of ego-stroking. The final analysis of any Invader creator content is that we're posting these videos to entertain other invaders, and if you can explain how a red taking the L due to one mistake getting you blendered, I'm open to hearing it. But reds are all aware that one mistake can end you, and it's pretty rare to see anything like that which entertains. To call it self-aggrandizement is the most uncharitable interpretation possible. There's even a tradition of posting our failed invasions on the Bad Red Man subreddit every Friday. We know we lose, and the only people who are chomping at the bit to see us die are the people we invade, and, well, we aren't making these videos for your benefit. I might occasionally throw you a bone, though.